Hey guys, Vera here from the video today, and today's video is on a big leak, and it is the Kd10, and this looks very similar to the Kd9, and we're gonna get into the looks later in the video, but let's just tell you some things to note about the shoe. One, it looks very similar. Two, that's the Kd10 box behind the shoe. And now let's get into our predicted tech spec rundown. So the upper of the shoe is a Flyknit material, and when you move towards the back of the shoe in the heel, we can see the Flyknit turns into this ribbed Flyknit that gives it more structure and doesn't have that, flat and droopy type of Flyknit. This ribs should give it a little bit more structure. And then we can see there is some raw material being used, the suede in the heel, and this suede should give you a little bit more containment. It gives it more structure, like I said. Now, it is using very large and long rope laces that practically goes down to the midsole of the shoe, and this should give you more containment because we all know the Kd9, the regular version, did have some issues when you're doing that lateral movements. Now on the medial side, we can see there is a lot more raw materials being used. Again, the suede in the back of the shoe, but also in the forefoot, which I don't know why, because when you're doing lateral movements, you want a raw material or fused overlays in the forefoot of your shoe, but also on the lateral side, not the medial side. Now let's move on to the cushion, and we can see that it looks very similar to the Kd9's cushion, but there is only two differences. The zoom bag is completely the same, but we can see the midsole does have a little bit of a different design. That line droops downwards and doesn't wrap around the whole midsole. Here's just an image to compare it. I probably already did it. And then the outsole, we can see on the medial side, has a different pattern compared to the Kd9's outsole pattern. So we know that the Kd10 will have a different traction compared to the Kd9's traction. So now let's talk about the shoe, and I think everybody here has this thing on their chest and they really want to get it off, so I'm just gonna say it. Why does this look so similar to the Kd9? It has the same zoom bag, and the reason why it has the same zoom bag is because it's cheaper to use the same zoom bag, because it was very expensive to make the zoom bag in that type of configuration. But that doesn't make sense because, well, it still costs $150. You would think it would cost $140 because if they're using the same zoom bag and that's about it, they just change up the outsole and a little bit of the midsole, then it should cost a little bit less if they're reusing parts from the Kd9. They're mass producing it. It should cost less. Now the upper of the shoe is also very similar to the Kd9 Elite. They're using very similar Flyknit, and they're using that compression type of collar. Even though it is different materials, it still has that look and function. And it's just like, why would you buy the Kd10 when the only difference between the 9 and 10 is, well, one's a low and the traction? It really doesn't make any sense. In my opinion, it doesn't. So if you are gonna buy a shoe, I would rather wait for you guys to wait out for the performance reviews on the Kd10 and see if the traction is a little bit better than the Kd9's traction, which by itself is pretty good. So yeah, to sum up, they look very similar. Basically, the only difference is they both have different outsole patterns, and one's a low and one's a high. So that's the difference between the 9 and 10s. So be sure to subscribe and follow me on Sneakerhead Amino.